Hey everyone, I'm Spencer.
And I'm Laura, and we're Married with Board Games. The world is on the brink of destruction by chaos and madness, and someone needs to step up and save it.
But the threats are tough. Horror is spreading, beings of ancient evil are awakening, and obscene monsters threaten every ounce of sanity you have left.
The stakes appear to be high in Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu, but does gameplay live up to the scene that has been set?
Let's find out. Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu was designed by Chuck Yeager based on Pandemic, designed by Matt Leacock, and published by Z-Man Games.
In the game, 2 to 4 players take on the roles of investigators with various special abilities and try to stop beings of ancient evil, known as Old Ones, from entering our world.
Now, players do this by collecting clue cards of various colors corresponding to various fictional New England towns, and then playing them to close 4 gates, 1 in each town.
Let's meet our investigators and see what evils they face.
And what you're looking at is everything that comes in the box for Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, minus the rule book. And so the first thing you'll notice is the board is very unique and very different from regular Pandemic. There are 4 areas of fictional New England. You've got Arkham, green, Dunwich, which is yellow, Kingsport, which is red, and then Innsmouth, which is purple. And each town also has a gate. So in Dunwich, it's the old mill right here. In Arkham, it's the park. In Innsmouth, it's the hospital. And in Kingsport, it's the graveyard. Now, the goal of the game is to close all 4 of these gates. And you'll mark them with these little markers here. And you're going to put them there. The way you close a gate is by collecting 5 of each color of each town. And 5 of each color of each town of these cards. So you have Kingsport, you've got Arkham, you've got Innsmouth, and then you've got Dunwich. So when a character has 5 of each color, or you can split it up between your team, you'll go to that location, play those cards as an action, and you'll be able to close the gate. The characters you'll be using are down here. You have a detective, driver, occultist, magician, doctor, reporter, and hunter. And just like in other games, they all have a special ability that will help them in the game. One thing that's going to be difficult about closing those gates are the cultists. If you play regular Pandemic, these are what you could compare to disease cubes. Okay, so these are going to be placed out on the board around like that in groups of however many you have to place down. And that's what's going to make closing these gates hard. They're going to stop you by, if you ever run out of cultists, the game is over. Also, if you ever have 3 cultists in one place and you have to add another one, there is no outbreak. Instead, you awaken an older one. Those are the monsters at the top of the board that we'll get to. So that's one way that you're going to have a difficult time in this game. Another thing, and this is actually new to this game, are the Shoggoths. And various game effects will cause them to appear on the board. And in fact, they can actually move around the board based on certain cards you draw. And if you ever enter a space with a Shoggoth, or a Shoggoth enters a space with you, you have to roll a sanity die. And the different sides on that, this means you lose a sanity, this means you add 2 cultists, this means you lose 2 sanity, and so on. So that's something new that we really like too, is the addition of that sanity die. Earlier I mentioned the older ones, and that's this row of monsters at the top of the board. At the beginning of the game, they're all flipped over like this. And so certain game effects, like the increase of cultists, if you have 3 in one spot, will cause these to flip over. And when you flip them over, you know which space you're on. So here, that means you have to draw 2 Evil Stirs cards. But there's also an effect on the ancient one. For example, this says, draw 4 cards from the bottom of the summoning deck and add 1 cultist to each of these locations. So that's one additional way that the older ones are trying to stop you from closing the gates. So throughout the game, you'll be flipping these over, and then if you ever get to the last card, which the last card is always Cthulhu, if he awakens, the game is over, and you lose. I mentioned the summoning deck. That's this deck over here. It's the cards that you're going to flip over, and that tells you where you're going to be adding the cultist. So this says the diner, so you're going to be putting one cultist on the diner. These are your sanity tokens. That's how you keep track of your sanity of your investigators. And what's really cool is your investigators, of course, because this is a Cthulhu game, your investigators can go insane. So once they lose all their sanity tokens, you flip them over and they have an insane side that modifies their ability and also gives them fewer actions to take each turn. We really like the game aids that tell you what your actions are, and on the other side it tells you what happens when you go insane. I'd also like to point out these bus stations. Those help you travel easier in this game as well. Those are just some of the basic concepts of the game. Let's get into what we think about it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and come out and say we like this game. One of the reasons is it's a great match for us because we like H.P. Lovecraft stories. We love the whole mythos. We just think it's a really cool universe to explore.
Oh, definitely. So original and groundbreaking. I mean, this was like ground zero for horror. Anything, writing, movies,
right,
music.
A lot of concepts come from Lovecraft.
Yes.
And so we like Lovecraft, but we also love Pandemic. We like the original Pandemic. We loved Pandemic Legacy.
Loved Legacy.
That was such a blast. And so it was a perfect mashup for us, for the two. And so that's one of the reasons why we love this game so much. Another thing that we like is... We talked about how much we love Lovecraft, so obviously we have lots of Lovecraft-themed games.
Yeah, Cthulhu, or just in general things that take place at like Miskatonic University or whatnot. We've got all these games that are within the universe, the mythos, and so we're used to all these other artists.
Right, and a lot of it is the Arkham Horror universe from Fantasy Flight games. And so nothing that's bad about that artwork. We like that artwork, but a lot of the games...
Yeah, it's great artwork. I really like that stuff.
Right, but a lot of the games, they use the same artwork. So this is a good, refreshing take on the different old ones of the Lovecraft universe.
Even the investigators.
Right. So being able to explore the Lovecraft mythos with a different take on it, a different visual take on it, was really cool. And the artwork is really fantastic.
Yeah, basically, or mainly because Lovecraft left so much up to the imagination. So any artist can take these different old ones and make them into something truly unique and terrifying.
Exactly.
And so it's really cool to see what new way can you reinvent this for us to see it.
Right, and speaking of reinventing, this game does offer some new variations on the Pandemic game.
Yes.
So the old one cards, they're at the top that I talked about on the overview. They, in addition to making you draw new Evil Spreads cards, they do new game effects, whether it's a recurring game effect that lasts for the entire game, or a single effect that happens when you flip that card over. But that was a really cool new mechanic to add to the game.
And a way to incorporate several different old ones.
Right. Another thing that's interesting is there are no outbreaks in the game.
It is interesting and, again, refreshing. That's a great idea and a genius way to reskin this game for us, and so that we don't feel like we're playing the same game.
Right.
And I really appreciate that.
And one of the things we really love is the addition of the Shoggoths, a new evil that is present on the board that you have to fight, and it's really cool that they can move around the board too. So.
Oh man, yeah, they can. You almost feel like they're chasing you.
Yeah, so you definitely have to avoid those guys, but sometimes you can't. But that's something fun to play around with. And finally, another thing that we really like that's different is the ease of movement in the game. The being able to use the bus stations to move from area to area is a lot easier. That makes travel, which, in the original Pandemic, sometimes that really made you mad because you had to spend so many of your actions moving.
Yes, it can really eat up your turn.
Right, but in this, it's a lot easier, so we really liked that. We'll talk about player count. We've played this with 2 players. We've played 4 players. And for us, it worked at all player counts. It worked great.
Yes, thank you, because it's hard to find games that if they list 2 to whatever players that really actually work at 2-player, and we are so thankful for that. And we were surprisingly shocked, but pleasantly shocked. Like, we played through it and went, hey, this works.
It works, and
Yeah.
it was fun playing off of each other. Hey, maybe you should do this, or maybe I could do this. What do you think about that? So it was a really good cooperative experience for us to play, and we really liked that. Just as fun as it was with 4 players. The game's not overly challenging. It is challenging. It does offer a challenge. You can't always beat it, but it's challenging enough to be fun. And it's not a very long game, maybe 45 minutes to an hour in our experience of playing it. Just long enough to have fun, but not too long to eat up your time.
I wonder if it even might be a good way to introduce someone just to Pandemic.
Right.
Start out with Cthulhu and then go to regular Pandemic. 'Cause I know the first time I played regular Pandemic, I thought it was a little overwhelming.
Well, but even if say that they like Lovecraft, it's a good way to introduce them to Pandemic. Reverse introduction. That'd be
True.
really cool.
True.
Yeah. So, bottom line, we are crazy about Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu.
Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu is not just a simple reskin of regular Pandemic. It offers interesting new mechanics and new decisions to be made that really make it feel like a different game.
So if you're on the fence about this one because you're worried about having 2 games that are similar, don't fret. You can easily own both versions and still have unique gameplay experiences in each.
And even if you aren't a fan of the H.P. Lovecraft stories, the game doesn't go too far into the mythos to make you feel like you're lost in whatever's going on.
So if you're looking for a new take on Pandemic or just a great Cthulhu game that works great for couples as well as it does for 4 players, we can't recommend this one enough.
We're going to box this one up for now. Be sure to reach out to us with any questions or comments on Twitter or Instagram at MarriedWithBG or our website, marriedwithbg.com.
Thanks so much for watching and stay sane.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.